and everywhere, but they could see no one. They had not been brought up to the exploring trade, and could not have opened up Africa if they had wanted to. "Or cut through the Isthmus of Panama," said the voice again. Now, as it happened, none of the 6 princes were engineers. They confessed as much. "Cut up China, then," said the voice, desperately. "It's like the ghost of a Tory newspaper," said one of the princes. And then, suddenly, they knew that the voice came from one of the pair of globes which hung in frames at the end of the schoolroom. It was the terrestrial globe. "I'm inside," said the voice. "I can't get out. Oh, cut the globe anywhere and let me out. But the African route is most convenient." Prince Primus opened up Africa with his sword, and out tumbled half a professor of magic. "My other half's in there," he said, pointing to the celestial globe. "Let my legs out, do." But Prince Secundus said, "Not so fast," and Prince Tertius said, "Why were you shut up?" "I was shut up for as pretty a bit of parlour magic as ever you saw in all your born days," said the top half of the Professor of Magic. "Oh, you were you?" said Prince Quartus. "Well, your legs aren't coming out just yet. We want to engage a competent magician. You'll do." "But I'm not all here," said the Professor. "Quite enough of you," said Prince Quintus. "Now look here," said Prince Sextus. "We want to find our 6 princesses. We can give a very good guess as to how they were lost, but we'll let bygones be bygones. You tell us how to find them, and after our weddings we'll restore your legs to the light of day." "This half of me feels so faint," said the half Professor of Magic. "What are we to do?" said all the princes threateningly. "If you don't tell us, you shall never have a leg to stand on." "Steal apples," said the half Professor hoarsely, and fainted away. They left him lying on the bare boards between the ink-stained desks, and off they went to steal apples. But this was not so easy, because Fortunatus Rex & Co. had built and built and built, and apples do not grow freely in those parts of the country which have been "opened up" by speculative builders. So at last they asked the little Prince Denis where he went for apples when he wanted them. And Denis said, "The old woman at the top of Clover Hill has apples in her 7 acres and in her 15 acres, but there's a fierce bulldog in the 7 acres, and I've stolen all the apples in the 15 acres myself." "We'll try the 7 acres," said the princes. "Very well," said Denis. "You'll be hanged if you're caught. So, as I put you up to it, I'm coming too, and if you won't take me, I'll tell, so there." For Denis was a most honourable little prince, and felt that you must not send others into danger unless you go yourself, and he would never have stolen apples if it had not been quite as dangerous as leading armies. So the princes had to agree, and the very next night Denis let himself down out of his window by a knotted rope made of all the stockings his mother had knitted for him, and the grown-up princes were waiting under the window, and off they all went to the orchard on top of Clover Hill. They climbed the wall at the proper corner, and Martha, the bulldog, who was very well bred and knew a prince when she saw one, wagged her kinked tail respectfully and wished them good luck. The princes stole over the dewy orchard grass and looked at tree after tree. There were no apples on any of them. Only at last, in the very middle of the orchard, there was a tree with a copper trunk and brass branches and leaves of silver, and on it hung 7 beautiful golden apples. So each prince took one of the golden apples very quietly, and off they went, anxious to get back to the half Professor of Magic and learn what to do next. No one had any doubt as to the half Professor having told the truth, for when your legs depend on your speaking the truth, you will not willingly tell a falsehood. They stole away as quietly as they could, each with a golden apple in his hand, but as they went, Prince Denis could not resist his longing to take a bite out of his apple. He opened his mouth very wide so as to get a good bite, and the next moment he howled aloud, for the apple was as hard as stone, and the poor little boy had broken nearly all his first teeth. He flung the apple away in a rage. and the next moment the old woman rushed out of her house. She screamed, Martha barked, Prince Denis howled. The whole town was aroused, and the 6 princes were arrested and taken under a strong guard to the tower. Denis was let off on the ground of his youth, and besides he had lost most of his teeth, which is a severe punishment, even for stealing apples. The king sat in his hall of justice next morning, and the old woman and the princes came before him. When the story had been told, he said, "My dear fellows, I hope you'll excuse me. The laws of hospitality are strict, but business is business after all. I should not like to have any constitutional unpleasantness over a little thing like this. You must all be hanged to-morrow morning." The princes were extremely vexed, but they did not make a fuss. They asked to see Denis and told him what to do. So Denis went to the furnished house, which had once been a select boarding establishment for the daughters of respectable monarchs. The door was locked, but Denis knew a way in, because his sister had told him all about it one holiday. He got up on the roof and walked down the schoolroom chimney. There, on the schoolroom floor, lay half a professor of magic, struggling feebly and uttering sad, faint squeals. "What are we to do now?" said Denis. "Steal apples," said the half-professor in a weak whisper. "Do let my legs out. Slice up the Great Bear, or the Milky Way would be a good one for them to come out by." But Denis knew better. "Not until we get the lost princesses," said he. "Now, what's to be done?" "Steal apples, I tell you," said the half-professor crossly. 7 apples there, 7 kisses. Cut them down. Oh, do go along with you, do. Leave me to die, you heartless boy. I've got pins and needles in my legs." Then off ran Denis to the 7-acre orchard at the top of Clover Hill, and there were the 6 princes hanging to the apple tree, and the hangman had gone home to his dinner, and there was no one else about, and the princes were not dead. Denis climbed up the tree and cut the princes down with the penknife of the gardener's boy. You will often find this penknife mentioned in your German exercises, now you know why so much fuss is made about it. The princes fell to the ground, and when they recovered their wits, Denis told them what he had done. "Oh, why did you cut us down?" said the princes. "We were having such happy dreams." "Well," said Denis, shutting up the penknife of the gardener's boy, "of all the ungrateful chaps!" And he turned his back and marched off. But they ran quickly after him, and thanked him, and told him how they had been dreaming of walking arm in arm with the most dear and lovely princesses in the world. "Well," said Denis, "it's no use dreaming about them. You've got your own registered princesses to find, and the half-professor says, steal apples." "There aren't any more to steal," said the princes. But when they looked, there were the gold apples back on the tree just as before. So once again they each picked one. Denis chose a different one this time. He thought it might be softer. The last time he had chosen the biggest apple, but now he took the littlest apple of all. 7 kisses, he cried, and began to kiss the little golden apple. Each prince kissed the apple he held, till the sound of kisses was like the whisper of the evening wind in leafy trees. And of course, at the 7th kiss, each prince found that he had in his hand not an apple, but the fingers of a lovely princess. As for Denis, he had got his little sister Daisy, and he was so glad he promised at once to give her his guinea pigs and his whole collection of foreign postage stamps. "What is your name, dear and lovely lady?" asked Prince Primus. "Sexta," said his princess. And then it turned out that every single one of the princes had picked the wrong apple, so that each one had a princess who was not the one mentioned in his letter of instructions. Secundus had plucked the apple that held Quinta, and Tertius held Quarta, and so on, and everything was as criss-cross crooked as it could possibly be. And yet nobody wanted to change. Then the old woman came out of her house, and looked at them, and chuckled, and she said, "You must be contented with what you have." "We are," said all 12 of them, "but what about our parents?" they must put up with your choice.